Please welcome Microsoft MVP superhero, Chris Cognetta. Today, he'll be presenting on Power Apps in the Real World. Please stick around after Chris's session for a live Q&A.
Hey everybody, welcome to Power Apps in the Real World. My name is Chris Cognetta, and I'm going to be your host today virtually. I also like to thank DynamicsCon for having us. We had a great vote turnout and really excited to be here presenting to you about Power Apps in the real world. As I mentioned, my name is Chris Cognetta. I'm the CTIO and one of the co-founders here at CongruentX, and you can read more about us at www.congruentx.com. I'm also one of your Microsoft Dynamics MVPs, about 10 years. I'm usually known as the architect or the application engineer in regards to infrastructure. A lot of Power Apps stuff has been my recent trend. You may see me posting videos and blogs, and you can follow me on Twitter at @ccognetta. So today's agenda, we're going to try to do a quick poll. I know it's hard with everybody being remote. So if you can type in the window that you want to have a comment, we can do that as well. I'll be watching the comments throughout the presentation. But overall, we're going to talk a little bit about Power Apps. So don't worry if you've already know about Power Apps, that's fine. This is just so everyone can get up to speed and have an understanding. Then we're going to dive right into some real world examples of how we're using Power Apps today, how customers are using them, and hopefully open up your mind. The presentation is to open up your mind to the world of Power Platform and the apps. And then we'll do some open Q&A, and I'll be live on the thread while we're live streaming, so I'll be able to answer questions as well. So let's get started. Usually in a class, I'll say, everybody raise your hand, but if you're any one of these, you're fine. There's lots of content in here around what we're doing, why we did it, and it should be helpful to you no matter what your role is. So we won't even take the poll. We'll just say that you guys are all good. So Power Platform and Power Apps overview. And why I do this is because a lot of people really don't understand, what are these terms, what's going on. And the big thing about Power Apps and Power Platform was to take your citizens who are your actual business users, people who do Excel formulas, people who do PowerPoint, and give them the ability to work with their data. No one knows the data better than them. So in order to use and build apps, what better than a person that knows the data set and knows what they want it to look at? In the past, this has been tried many times. And a problem with that has been the fact of no cliff development. And you see our guy off to the right there falling off the cliff. And what that meant is the technology stack only went so far in these low-code tools. And then once it got there, you had to throw the tool out, give it back to IT, start a big project, got all built. With Power Platform, you never hit that cliff. So once you hit a point where that citizen developer doesn't have the capabilities to write the business logic or what's needed, then a developer can come in and do that extra piece. This gives you scale to your business. This allows your IT team and your developers to focus on the 5 or 10% really hardcore stuff that makes your business unique versus the things that need to be done every day, like creating a report and getting quick data or accessing a Power App. So that's why these tools have come about. And really, from a technical perspective, you don't really need to have a ton of understanding. You can get started right away. There's hundreds of videos like this one on YouTube. So I encourage you to take a look if you don't know what we're talking about, but we're going to try to educate you right here. So Power Apps. Power Apps is a PaaS service or platform as a service, which means it runs in Azure. It runs in Microsoft's cloud. There's nothing you have to do as far as where it sits, how it runs, how it's deployed. It's all handled through your Microsoft on Office 365 tenant. Microsoft started referring to the apps that you already knew, like Power BI and Flow and Power Apps, as the Power Platform. So all of those P words that you hear, Power Automate is another one that replace Microsoft Flow, Power Pages, all of those are what is considered the Power Platform suite of tools designed for low-code developers and regular developers to build solutions on the Microsoft stack. And this would be using these tools against common systems like Dynamics CRM, the ERP, BC, AX, and of course, because it's Microsoft's commitment to open standards, now you have the ability to connect to other systems. Like you may have noticed a recent announcement of Microsoft Viva for Sales and how Microsoft Viva for Sales is working with Salesforce. So the ability to build these edge-based applications that regardless of the data set, whether you're in Salesforce, SAP, Adobe, Oracle, doesn't matter anymore. You grab a connector and you're able to connect. This stuff is changing fast. Lots of new announcements have been made in the last week on the upcoming release wave, and it continues. There's 2 release waves per year, and they have the ability to look at things. If people aren't using them, they shut them off. Why make it overly complex? So it's a really great way to get content, get apps out, and manage it all within an environment, and we're going to talk more about that. So there's 2 types of model apps today. One is called a Canvas app. One is called a model app. I'm going to jump to the bottom and talk about the model app right here. And that's your standard Dynamics 365 look and feel. If you look at that interface, that's that business interface. It's common between what you see. You have long forms, you have details, you have some graphic elements that have been added, even some reporting capabilities, listing activities, notes, all those kind of things are all available in the model app. This is the same tool set that Microsoft used to build BC, AX, Microsoft CRM, all of those capabilities are inside that tool set. With Power Apps, you also have another capability, which is a total custom look and feel. So you can build a Canvas app, which allows your graphic editors and really any design that you want to put can be on there and access your data the same way a model app can. So the power here is the ability to extend existing apps and use the same tool set that Microsoft has, but also the ability to build custom type apps to solve a problem. This is really important when it comes to adoption. Having the ability to control the look and feel of an app like never before is really segmenting out how you can solve those adoption challenges. And by the way, you can have multiple apps for multiple users, all based on different security roles. So a group in the warehouse may see one app, a group in the accounting office may see another app, and your sales team may see another app, all transparent and independent to them with a client focus on what do they need to do to solve their job. What's the end result? More productivity, better adoption, increased customer experience, and likely more sales revenue. So how do I get started? If you have Office, Microsoft 365, or Dynamics 365, depending on your license, Power Apps may be included. However, you can get a trial right now. I'll leave the link in the window for the trial, but the trial would be simply as going to Power Apps, Microsoft.powerapps.com, and you'd be able to go to your web browser and you can start building Power Apps right there. There's tutorials, there's all kinds of samples, there's the ability to download a tool to your desktop. You can do this if you feel comfortable building like a desktop type of tool versus a web browser tool. I can tell you that I've never really built an app in the studio. I've done everything on the web browser, and it's been a very smooth environment, very easy to deal with. Another thing you're probably wondering is about these apps. Do I got to go out to the App Store? Do I got to go to my Google or my Apple iPhone Play? The answer is not really. So what happens is that your apps are actually stored in your tenant, in your Microsoft Dataverse for whichever organization that you're building them in. And then the admins have the ability to control who can distribute and who can see these apps. But there's an app that you download one time from your Google or your Apple Play Store that give you the capabilities to run an emulator, and it's just a Power App. So you just download Microsoft Power Apps to your phone, and you'll have this one icon. When you click that icon, you'll log in, and you'll see all the apps that have been given to you by your organization. So think about it as a launch app to all the apps of your organization. This stops your users from having to go out all the time and download a new app. It gives you control within the environment of what you're dealing with, and it's really great for bring your own device organizations, certainly like ours. And then finally, you can set up governance, but a lot of people can go and create simple Power Apps in a few minutes, and we're actually going to show you how to do that without even writing any code. So let's walk into that. So Time Tracker, this is the first app that we have. So Time Tracker Challenge was a company that had a remote workforce, and they were going around working at different clients, and they wanted to track when that work was done and who did that work. They were using a paper process. They had people submitting hours at the end of the week via fax. It caused employees to have to go read those faxes, enter the data back into the system manually. There was fraud concerns that people were saying they were on site, but they never showed up and they would bill time. They also had an outdated phone system, time management system, that you could enter in your client information, what client you had, how many hours you worked, if you were taken off, if you were sick. And then that would give another extract that had to be imported into Dynamics. So you had all these things going on. And then finally, they may work multiple projects. So they had to know all their project code IDs, and they were waiting to the end of the week to do this. So you really couldn't forecast how many hours were used or any of that. So we wanted a solution that can solve that. And I laugh a lot, but do you still use a time card at work today? Do you know ADP charges over $450 a month to have a time card capability system like that, plus a per fee per user to punch time? You could replace that system with a solution like this. So what was the deal? We needed to develop a Power App that could run on everybody's device to record the time. We also enabled features on that device. So just like your phone has GPS, it has cameras, it's got all kinds of stuff. By running that Power App, you can get access to those items on that device. So we talk about doing business in a new way today, right? We're still doing things that we did 20 years ago. But if you take your iPhone and you tell it, next time I go to Lowe's, I need a 2x4. The next time you arrive at Lowe's, and it knows this by your GPS and your coordinates and what it's looking at, it will tell you, hey, I need to buy a 2x4. So you don't forget. Well, why can't we use this type of technology at work? Wouldn't it be nice that you went on site and it automatically pulled up the client for your sales team so they knew everything about the client before you went there? We're going to show you that app in a little bit too as well. But also the ability to limit fraud, to know that person was at the physical location, know that they were on site. How about completely getting rid of time management altogether? When their device came into the building and left the building, it automatically would put a timestamp there. It's all possible without writing any code. Okay, so this is some of the things we did. And then also being able to connect that to your Dynamics, either PSA or your time system, or even send it to ADP for your daily time logs in order to create it. It really doesn't matter. You're able to have to connect to all of these capabilities within the Power App solution. So I'm going to demo this for you now, and I'm going to be switching back and forth from my screen. So I apologize if you see some delay as I switch back and forth, but this is the Time Tracker app. The first thing you're going to notice is that the Time Tracker app is in the format of a mobile device. Now, it doesn't have to be that format. It also can be in a tablet, and it's a responsive design. So as you build it, as you make it wider or smaller, it will contract and expand to that. But you can see as I log in, I'm seeing all time entries I have. I also see the button to the ability to look at drafts. I see the submitted, I see approved. I also can see what goes with time, usually expenses, right? So if I go and I'm on a trip, I also going to have expenses on that trip. Did I have a rent-a-car? I can add all those things. And of course, what's a time management app without the ability to do approvals? I can even go in and add time. And by adding the time, I'm able to select the duration of time I'm at. I'm able to take the type of project work that I did. I can even look for a project, or in a later app, I can actually tell you what project site you're on just by knowing where you're at on your phone. Again, making things easy for the users, not having to enter a bunch of details, and being able to get there is what we want to strive for. So when I pick a project, I can then see the tasks that are available to what I may work on, as well as what role did I play. I may play multiple roles. I have all those capabilities governed by the security and all the things that you're doing in Dataverse today. I have all that capability here. Comments, I could even attach things or even add photos. And then I can press submit, and I will have my time entry will end up inside the system. So this is an example of one way that you can use a Power App to handle some things in your business right away. Very easy to code and build. and a great way to get started with Power Apps. So let's switch back to the presentation and let's talk about the Solution Component Explorer. So the Solution Component Explorer was another challenge that a client had about they were building solutions for customers all over the world. And they were building things, but their team that was building custom code was not aware of what all those clients were building. So every time somebody would say, hey, did you ever build this before? They had no way to tell. So they would build it again. So they had no reuse. So there's many examples of this. This one's related to a software company where a particular feature was needed. They didn't have a way to look it up. They didn't know if it was available or what has changed, or better yet, what company has already deployed it. Wouldn't it be great from a reusability perspective to know all the components and pieces you already have so that when you're building a sizing for a client to size a job, you'd be able to do that? Now, in a software industry, that may be different components, but what about if it's for a construction industry where you're got to do countertops or you have to do sink installs or backsplash? You can have all of those type of calculations inside of a thing like this and know what that detail is. And that would make it very easy for you to size that job. So very similar in aspects. So what do we need to do here? We need to develop a Power App that would allow the software engineers to search some solution library. The ability to locate for the data on how are we going to harvest this and where are we going to have it. And then finally, a remote solution so that they could access it from their phone. So let's jump in and take a look at the Solution Explorer demo. So the Solution Explorer demo starts with a SharePoint list. Now here's where it's going to get magical. How many of you have a SharePoint list or a list of data? It could be in Excel, it could be in Access, it could be in SQL Server, it could be another system. But many of us use lists to store data. Here you can see I have a list of some items of IP, the versions that they support, a description of what they are, where they've been deployed, and what version they have. Very simple column, very easy way to navigate. But because this list is sitting buried in a site, it's not very easy to get to, and it doesn't really resonate with the people that want to use it. Well, I want to introduce you to this cool feature from Power Apps that you will see there's a button here. It says create an app. So let's create an app. And I'm going to call that app DynamicsCon. I'm going to create that app. So now, I mentioned to you when you build an app, you need a couple different things. You need the ability to create, you need the ability to view, you need the ability to access data, and most important, you need an easy way to consume that data. Well, as you can see, what's happening in the background right now, Power Apps is magically building an app for me without me writing any code. And we're doing this live, right? This is something that really shows the magic of lists and data that are out there and how fast you can use this technology to help you build and get at an app that someone could use. And you'll see right here, Microsoft always wants our feedback. We'll skip that. You'll see that it's loading. And, you know, a lot of people say, well, hey, you could just switch to the screenshot, but I really want to show you guys how long it takes to build. Now, we're doing this on a remote connection. We got video going back and forth and stuff like that. And your app is already built. It's a little faster experience when you're doing that. But as soon as this finishes savings, it's going to open up an app. You guys remember I told you about the format of the app. Let's play the app and see what the app does. So quickly, you'll notice that the engagement IP from the SharePoint list is the name of the app. I have the ability to search for items inside this list, and I can see the same items that were already in the SharePoint list. I also am able to click into the item, see the details about the item. I even can edit the item and put details inside of it, as well as attach files. Don't believe me that this app works? Let's add it. Let's add an item. And simply press the button. We now have the item in our list. You guys can see it right here. Let's go back to our list. This is the original list. I'm going to refresh the list. And voila, you'll see DynamicsCon has been added into the list. So did I write any code? I now have a functional app that I can share with other people who can maintain and use that capability for just about any type of data source. Where could you deploy this? What could you do with it? Do you have lists like this today? If so, very easy way to start playing with Power Apps is to build an app from that way, and then to start extending that app with additional functionality. So the wizard sets it up, and then you continue to extend it. And these wizards get smarter and smarter based on the fields and attachments and all of that. It's really an amazing system, and something that I really hope you guys are inspired to look at after this call or after this webinar. So let's go back to the presentation. And let's talk about one of our customers, US Lumber, and win the yard. So US Lumber is a giant lumber company around the world, around the United States, and they're focused on working with Lowe's and Home Depots and Ace Hardwares, and their focus is to, service them as a client. They provide moldings, they provide wood, they provide a whole bunch of things. While they were doing this, they were accessing both not only remote locations, but they also had the need to see data. And the data that they wanted to see were things like, what's on the truck? When are my deliveries coming? What about my returns? How long will it take to get this? Is this in stock? And when the sales rep would show up on site, they would be bombarded with these questions and saying, hey, I can't get the answers from you. So what they would do is they would open up their laptop, and they take their laptop, and this is what they would do. Well, how's that experience, right? That's not a great experience face-to-face. So they needed a way to solve that problem without opening their laptop. So as a result, they started calling on their telephones. Hey, let me call Julie in the back office to make that happen. So it was really now tying up two people in order to take care of one customer. And then finally, with COVID and how things were impacted, every time that they would get there, there'd be an issue. And then the salesperson would be surprised. Wouldn't you want to know before you walked into that customer that their shipment's going to be delayed and all the other details at the click of your hand? Also, US Lumber wanted to change their customer experience. So we wanted to develop an app that their sales team could use to solve common problems for clients. We also wanted it to know and be a location aware. And why is it location aware? Because they were actually having to fill out manual time cards every time they went on site to when they left. Now the app knows when they're on site. As soon as they arrive on site and they leave on site, it not only can tell you how long they spent, create the time card record, but also update the account that somebody has recently visited them. So now you're lighting up your CRM with data and elements that maybe would have been on a fax or would have been on a paper that never got entered into your Dynamics system or your Dataverse. And then finally, provide a remote solution that they could just flip up their app. They don't have to type in the customer. They would already know all the details as soon as they pulled them to the parking lot. So let's show you what that app looks like. So on the left-hand side, we had this ability of where this is the miles on the person's car. And as the person went from store to store to store, they'd be able the ability to enter the miles. What was this for? Reimbursement and expenses. Now we can track real-time miles and know how much miles and how much fuel that each person has been spending, their travel from point A to point B, as well as their active visits, the visits for the day, what stores they're going to, how far they're going to be, and then again, notate those visits, complete them, and record them inside the system. So we have a 360-degree view of the customer. The ability to also see what's en route, if it's a PO number, if it's a return, or if it's delayed. So quickly, I'm able to see any alert, any detail about this customer, all within my mobile app. And you can see the design is completely changed. Does this look like Dynamics? Does this look like the Dynamics 365 CRM system? No, because this is a Canvas app. You have the ability to change the experience based on what your users are looking for. A great example of changing that experience is an airline. How many of you have gone to the airlines and have waited in line to go up, and you see the person sitting there and they're typing on that 1980s green screen, main screen, pressing F1, F2, what's your phone number, what's your ID, what's all your details? That's an old experience. If you go 30 feet behind that desk, there's a kiosk there. And that kiosk, you enter in your credit card, you just swipe your credit card, it knows who you are, what your flight is, it asks you what you want to do, and it prints out your ticket and you're gone, all within an unbelievable interface that's user-friendly and can get it done. That, my friends, is an example of a power app and the difference between using the existing technologies and building a client-specific experience like that kiosk app or like this app for US Lumber that lets them win over their business. By the way, US Lumber was given the award from Home Depot for Supplier of the Year for changing their business model. And now all the other suppliers to Home Depot are trying to catch up to this. So again, great ways to show your adoption, show the change, and show how your clients like Home Depot would experience that. So this is one of my favorites. This is a class lab check-in. And this was something that my son, who is now 15 years old, he did this at 12 years old, was given an assignment by the homeroom teacher on how can they do efficiencies inside their classroom. And my son noticed that it was taking approximately 15 to 20 minutes every day to do a roll call, calling people in, seeing who's there, here, not here, absence, all of that kind of stuff. So he wanted to figure out a way to solve that problem. And with that challenge, there was also the ability of a sign-in sheet that people were using to say that I have been here and I also were looking at the wall and I signed in. Well, what happened there is that the teacher would then have to go through and decipher, scribbled, whose name was that? Did they check in? Did they not check in? Or even worse, another student wrote the other person's name, say, hey, Bob, add me to the list. I can't go to lab today. So he wanted a way to solve that. So how did he do that? He developed a power app, and this power app now was integrated with Power Automate. And through Power Automate, we have the capability to trigger an event, and that event is triggering based on the location. This code can be appended to an app. So if you have a corporate app or you have a school app, this code could be embedded inside there that everybody who has that school app, it would know when you came to school, when you got out of school, when you went to a class, when you left the class, when you went to lab, when you didn't go to lab, and you didn't have to do anything. All of that data would automatically be added into the teacher's books. They would already automatically know attendance. Parents could easily log in and know that their children were at school. It solves a lot of problems and a capability to be able to do that. So let's go look at the check-in demo and how that works. And I'm going to switch over to my other screen again, bring that up, and you'll see I'm inside of Power Automate. And you will see I have a Power Automate flow called Geofence JLMS. Let's open it up and take a look. So with these three simple commands, I am able to detect the area, and you'll notice this little box right here. And this trigger has the capability of looking at my device and seeing where it is. Now, it has a deprecated feature on here. There's a new one that I haven't updated this to. I can do that in the future to show you. But when you click inside the trigger, you get the area and the GPS location of where that trigger is. Once that trigger, so think about like a Google's map, and inside the Google map, I can see the actual house up down to 10 meters. So if I put the school address, I have the ability to move it around to the actual classroom within 10 meters. Anybody who triggers in and out of that event on their device will kick off this flow. Once it kicks, it's going to open up an email, and it's going to email my son that the person checked in and out is one aspect. This could be an alert to the teacher, or you can completely bypass this step and actually create a record directly in Dataverse. And this record getting created in Dataverse would be the same equivalent of creating that record inside of the teacher's system. Maybe it's the downstream school system, maybe it's their attendance system, or it could even just be a log that she has. But the ability and capability of using a Power App and being able to use the other tools like Power Automate, Power BI, and using the whole Power Platform give you the tools to build almost anything that you want to build with very low code to do it. So again, just wanted to show you there's only 3 steps here to make that happen. In the geolocation thing, check out a blog for me later on this week. I'll throw out a blog on how the trigger changed, and we'll get that updated. So let's go back to our presentation. So there's lots of other things inside of Power Apps, and I couldn't even take this 1 hour with you guys. There's not enough time for me to show you everything, but I can't not talk about Power Apps without talking about AI. And AI is changing the world, just like you're seeing with ChatGPT and all of these other components and pieces that are being added into Microsoft Viva for Sales, as well as Teams. The AI is going to help us and help us gain back efficiencies and productivity, but it's also going to show us data and patterns and things that we've never seen before. And Microsoft is well aware of this. The problem with collecting this data and doing that is you usually need a data science to build these complex data models on how you can do that. So Microsoft wanted to determine a way that you could do that with low code. And we have that. We have these 4 models, and there are some new ones that have been released since this presentation. But there's a form processing model, an object detection model, a prediction model, and text classification model that you can use all out of the box. The forms processing model is just like it sounds. Do you guys remember the old school OCR? I'm going to take my scanner, scan that in, grab the document and do that. Well, now you can take that a step further. You can actually build a Power App just like the one I'm showing here on the left-hand side. And I can actually have my accounting team take a picture of that invoice that came in, and that invoice could then be read, and the data elements could then be pasted directly into my CRM. So I can then take, using machine language, the model will execute, it will look for the different fields, fill them inside, and create that exact invoice that we need to pay right inside of my system. Would that save your accounting team some time? Think about some teams that maybe do 50 or 60,000 of these. You could even have your developers write a job that processes this automatically by calling this Power App. The prediction model is just what it means. It looks at data based on the model that you pick, and it lets you determine whether or not this person or that customer is going to do an event. And it does that by looking at certain data. So for example, if you had a field on a payment date and you had multiple rows of payments from a customer and you ran the model against that customer and it never made a late pay, you'd get 100% prediction that they're going to be on time for their March payment. But if you ran it on another customer who has late payments, especially around the holidays in November and December, you would then get a difference in the prediction. So by looking at the data, it's actually able to predict when or not someone is going to have that event. Is it 100%? No, it's not 100%, but it is there, and it gives you the capability to see that. Sales predictions is another example of way you could use this technology. Also, text classification, the ability to search through words, do summary of those words in documents, in imports, in tags, in sentiment analysis, or even emails. Being able to use that text classification to say, oh, they're talking about a support case, route that case automatically is another way you can use some of these tools. My favorite is the object detection model, and we don't have a lot of time left, but one of the things that I want to talk about is if you watch this video, it's out on YouTube. It's about the PepsiCo company, and their problem was Walmart came up and said, if you want to sell at Walmart, you have to be your own stocker of your own products. You ever notice most of the Walmart people are not stocking the stuff on the shelves? They're just making sure it's organized. The vendors who sell there are required to stock their items. And by the way, they don't get paid for their items until the item is registered through their cash register as Walmart's been paid. Then they get paid. So if someone drops that bottle of soda, Walmart never pays for it. Your vendor does. So how did they solve this problem? They created a power app using object detection that can take a picture, as you see right here, of the soda bottles. And it's not just of 3 bottles. Think about rows of soda stacked inside the cooler. And by the way, they're not just on the soda aisle. They're also at every individual aisle these days, right? With object detection, their driver can now go around and quickly take pictures, get their inventory, and update their system, and then restock. Amazing way of using this. I usually tell a story about how I did this in my wife's closet and her shoes, but you guys get the point. You can have some fun with it. So you can build a model and you'll see how you train the model, what the details are, and the more data that you give to the model, the better and more accurate the score is. If you only have 10 items in the model, then you're only going to get a low prediction. The more it learns, the more data it gets. The more data it gets, the more accurate your model will become. So you can have some fun with that one as well. Let me show you some examples of what users just like you have already built. So one is the Lego company, and they use a tablet app that you can see at the bottom for quality assurance. And this app is following along in the line in the warehouse where the process of filling out 5 pages is now an app for the person who can then look at the Lego, is guided on the screen of what to look for, the edges, the roundness, the sharpness, all of that, and can quality control a batch. And they can use their sentiment to say it's positive or negative and reject the batch, which then gets sent to the engineers who have to go out and refix the tool line, all through quality assurance. Another example is how many people got Excel spreadsheets like this where they're trying to calculate out a whole bunch of things for the business, right? Old school people, have hundreds of these. They could get it corrupted, embedded. How about a Power App Canvas app running inside of a model app Dynamics app? You can do that too. This app does all the calculations. It even exports to PDF and back to that Excel format, all using Power App code, low code, no code. Some Power Apps from recent events, people made some funny games. My favorite is the most whacked. So as you were in the hallway, if you saw that person, you press the button, they got whacked. By the end of the day, last person standing, they won it. So really fun game in Whack and MVP. But again, the interface is, the possibilities are unlimited on what you can do. Am I advocating building games with it? I'm not, but it's a great way to learn and have some fun. An app that we also built for Campus Engage, which is a fellow company I used to work for, was a student app. And this was an app around the most important things that students want to see, like, hey, when's lunch? Or where did I leave my car? Or I know that student from class, I'd like to email them about getting information. By quickly accessing certain pieces of a Canvas app and building customizations, you can see how this is spread across. By the way, does this remind you of anything? Does that not look like PowerPoint slides? Because it's the same technology. The same way you have your multiple slide deck inside of PowerPoint, you can put multiple Canvas apps together and build that experience. Another great thing about this is the ability to get feedback real time from the students. And here we were using sentiment analysis to ask the student how they were going. And at the time, there was a lot of issues with security on campuses, as you guys all are aware. So we wanted to track sentiment to see how students were, if they were interacting with the app, were they having a good day or not. Well, we got sentiment alerts for a particular class. And in that class, the teacher had gotten a car accident in the morning and was having a really bad day. And it alerted the team to go off and have a conversation with the teacher. And they were able to get a substitute in there. And the rest of the sentiment for the day was positive. But again, that's just a small way of using some of these tools to help a better client or student experience. And then finally, from the team at Congruent X, we've actually built an app called Credibly AI, all on top of Power Apps. And this app lets you get prepared for a meeting. And it's calling out all kinds of different data sources and rating a score for you. Remember our prediction score and our rating score? It's giving you a score based on the data, both in your CRM system and outside from third-party sources to let you know, based on this customer, this is your probability of win. It's possible that I'm selling to an airline, or let's say I'm selling something to Southwest. Wouldn't you want to know, instead of raising your hand at the sales meeting, that we have Southwest Airlines, and we have, I'll date myself, Eastern Airlines in the background. Wouldn't you want to know that we already have business with them? That's the whole power of Credibly, is to use the data in your system, sprinkle in some outside data sources, and give you all the preparation you need for that meeting. So here's my challenge to you guys. Let's think about your ideas together. And when you find them and you get inspired to build them, how about tweeting your idea? And maybe it just shows up on our next iteration of Power Apps in the Real World. And again, you can tweet me at Cognetta, or you can even post and tag me on LinkedIn. I'd love to see the concepts and things you come up with, but we may just use it in our next presentation. And again, in closing, Power Apps, again, can be used to solve all these business challenges and many more. Start today at powerapps.microsoft.com. That's the link. Again, I'll put it in the window during our live chat. And again, you can start off with just pressing a button off your SharePoint and let it build the app, to all the way forward to those student app that I showed you guys. That's a very small learning curve, and the capabilities are endlessness. So again, thank you for joining, and appreciate you guys coming out today. I hope you guys had a great DynamicsCon.